All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Inside the Feed. I got Zach, aka MD Motivator, on. He's a mental health activist. I'm so excited to have him on the show today. How you doing?
Oh man, I'm really excited for this opportunity. How are you?
Good to have you on. So give the people who you are, what you're doing, and all that.
Sure. So my name's Zach. I'm originally from Canada. I live now in Sydney, Australia. I guess I can give you like a 2-minute synopsis of my story. So originally from Canada. When I was 18, I failed out of college. My parents kicked me out. My dean said university isn't right for you, and just I was at a really all-time low. And through that experience, I guess I learned a lot about myself, and we can talk about that and the reflections through that. And I guess I use that as motivation to, I guess, prove them wrong, which is not the best way to go about motivation, but I used it to get to a point where I applied to medical school and was accepted into medical school. And then I started here in Sydney, January of 2020 at the University of Sydney. And then through that period from January of 2020 to I'd say about June 2020, so about that 6 months, I kind of went through a lot. Starting medical school, moving to the other side of the world, going through a 6-year relationship breakup, which at the time I didn't know, but that was really like my source of like happiness and identity, and just feeling really alone, to a point where it was like I would be going for like outside walks or runs and just hysterically like crying, and seeing people walk by me and just not even giving me the time of day, and I'm recognizing just feeling like it was just alone. And I'm like, this isn't me. So I sought support. A counselor told me to journal my thoughts. I bought a journal, didn't really like it. So I was like, you know what? Why don't I just journal my thoughts online, on TikTok? Because no one knew me on TikTok. I never had a TikTok. It was just like this cringe app that I could like express everything out. And through that, kind of this thing snowballed over the past year to a point where now we have over 2.5 million followers across the platforms, and just more importantly, giving people a voice to know that they're not alone, and the confidence to seek the support they deserve. And that's everything for me. So, and then I met you.
Yeah, great. No, I love that. Thank you for that. And I definitely want to touch on as much as we can about what you said, because there's so much more to go into. But so walk us through that journey. Like, was it the transitions that you think that kind of made you feel alone, even though you felt like you had things going for you? Like you said, you grew up in Canada, and you went to Sydney to pursue this new medical school. Like, walk us through that. Like, why all of a sudden you feel alone?
I guess so. Like in Canada, if you want to talk about that, when I was 18, when I failed out, I think it was just a lot of freedom and no structure, and I was just immature at that point in my life. So that was too much for me at that point. And then that was a strong reflection to go against like my family and my brother. But I guess last year, I always speak this past year, last year, that was just a culmination of a lot of things at once in a situation where it was very new to me. I've always loved trying new things and exploring and putting myself outside my comfort zone. But when like 5 or 6, I guess, negative things happened at once, it just put me to a breaking point. And I didn't even realize it was a breaking point. That was the other thing, was like, I told you, like, it wasn't until like I went on like runs and I'd be like crying. I'd be like, holy shit, this isn't me. It was like one of those like epiphanies, sort of like when you're like eating really bad fast food and you're like, okay, I got to hit the gym. I got to get serious, or like I got to start saving money, or like you just get to like a breaking point. And that was my mental breaking point, to then be like, okay, fortunately enough, I was confident enough still to be like, okay, this isn't right. And I sought support. So I think that's a really big thing for people, is that they don't want to seek support when you're feeling that bad, or they have sought support and they've been rejected or dismissed or told they're blah, 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 blah. And then that just puts them farther into a hole. So I guess the biggest thing I could tell someone is, if you feel any way like I did, to just say, I'm not okay. You don't have to like say everything. Just play basketball with your friend and say, hey, it's been really shit lately. I mean, like, you don't have to go into like this therapist room with your best friend or your parents. Just chat it up like we're doing right now. Really simple.
Why do you think like people either are not aware of it or scared to like say that they're not okay, like from what you've seen? Because it seems like your whole thing is like opening a platform, right? And then opening the conversation and making people feel comfortable that they're not alone. and you've gotten so much support, but why all of a sudden, like what do you see? Like, what are the reasons why people hold back?
I mean, that's a really good question. I think there's a lot of reasons for that, right? I think as humans, we're really complex, and we each have different identities for different spaces of our lives, right? You're different at work as you are at home, as you are with your friends or whatever. And I think we put on this mask of like, we can do, we're invincible, or we're super social or whatever it is. And when we're not feeling that way, it's easier to turn those facets off from those, like just turn off from those people than it is to say, I have a different face to me right now. I'm going through this. So I think that's a challenge is I guess our perceived perceptions of others, right? It's not even like perceptions, it's just what we perceive them to be.
Right.
I think that's a huge thing. And we're not really taught from a young age to be vulnerable. I feel like it's not really like, maybe it's like talked about. And that's the thing I have issue with social media is like, you raise awareness, you destigmatize or whatever, but it's like, okay, great. But like make change or put it into action or actually speak it out. So I think it's just it's hard. It's hard to be vulnerable in raw and real, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you're going through it, right? You're already feeling insecure or lacking confidence.
Yeah. And you just need that support. And there's something that you said that was so powerful. And I want you to kind of like talk about a little bit, but you said like vulnerability is your superpower. Like explain that more, because I think that's so powerful. I think that you nailed it on the head with that.
Thanks, man. So I said vulnerability was your superpower. So when I failed out of college and I got to a point where I was about to start medical school, I realized, holy smokes, I got kicked out of college. I kicked out of my house, and I had like really good on like the MCAT, which is a test to get into medical school, and did well on my GPA. I was like, I kind of have a story here. And my story wasn't that I was a successful student. My story was I was vulnerable about being kicked out of college and making it to the point. So through that, I created a formula. And I use that the formula academically, and now I use it with mental health. So it's vulnerability equals relatability equals empowerment. So I feel like when we're vulnerable, we can relate. When we can relate, we can empower. So whether that's from saying I'm depressed, whether that's saying I'm a college dropout, whatever your situation is, when you're okay with in your own skin, that's when you really, I guess, change the lives of others. And I learned that through being kicked out of college, and then I just applied it, I guess, in the mental health space.
It's amazing. That's a formula that needs to be tattooed. That's a formula that needs to be on a billboard. That's something that people don't want to know, but need to know, you know? It's back to like, so you started this TikTok thing, like what made you do that? And it's obviously, made us in touch, and you're crushing it and created an amazing community. So walk us through like that first day when you posted that video, like what was the purpose?
Yeah, I guess so. The first day I posted it, my best friend now, his name's Jake Goodman, but now he's Dr. Jake Goodman, the co-founder with Mental Health Movement with myself. He was on TikTok for about like 3 or 4 months before, and he's like, Zach, just post a video on there. And I was just like hesitant, right, for a few weeks, as anyone is with any new thing, right? And then I just posted it. And it was, at the time, it wasn't actually mental health. The first video I posted was about being a college dropout, getting into medical school. And I remember going back to the app like a few days later, and I had like 6 likes and like 2 comments from the 2 friends that I sent it to, saying like fire, great work. I mean, like, oh, fuck this. I'm sorry, I shouldn't swear, but like, I was like, oh, this is stupid. This isn't impacting anyone. And it just, I don't like being in front of a video. I actually don't like watching my videos after I post them. And like, it was just like too cringy for me. And then I come back like 4 days later, and that video has like 500,000 likes or something crazy. It went viral. I've never gone viral on social media before that. And I was just like, holy smokes, people are resonating. More importantly, people were sending me messages saying like, I was just about to quit college, or this really helped me. I'm going, like, people were sharing their stories, and people were just like, I was blown away that social media could be used for so much good, because when I see social media, I see it as like these filtered stories, not even filtered photos, but filtered stories of people. And when people were connecting to a random stranger's 15-second video, I was like, I can connect with people way more than I'll ever be able to like in person ever in my life.
Yep.
So I was like, whatever I'm going through, why don't I share it on here? Because one, I know I'm not alone, and two, hopefully we can get through this together. And then it wasn't until like a month later that on TikTok I started posting, I guess, like mental health videos. Because I was
and was this the same time when you were kind of,
it was my lowest.
Yeah, you're low.
It was May of 2020. It was my lowest.
So you were vulnerable. You were real. That's, people resonate.
Yeah, man. I was, and that's the thing too. I feel like we can go into cyberbullying as well, as like people who share these vulnerable stories when they're really vulnerable. It's like they're going through shit. They're humans, whether they're going viral or not. What you say in the comments matters. You are much more likely, you can attest to this because you have large platforms. When you scroll through the videos or the comments, you see, okay, good, heart, and then it's like this really negative comment, and you tend to just isolate and focus on that one comment. So although you think it'll just get lost in the shuffle, chances are if it's negative, we as humans really take that much more personal. So be careful with what you say online. To anyone listening, it matters.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I posted that video of mental health, and then that one went really, really viral. And then at that point I was, then I started posting more about the stuff, and it just evolved from like, I guess, me in my room to like, then now I like to do, we can't do it now because of COVID, but I wanted to get on the streets and social experiments or Omegle or whatever it is, essentially to, I guess, put myself out there and interact with people, and be as vulnerable as possible to show others it's okay to do the same.
Yeah. So, walk me through those like next steps. You start creating this community, you have a voice, you're at your low, you're vulnerable. You keep going. Like, what are you feeling? What are the conversations in your head? Like, what are some of the goals, or where's your headspace at?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about growing platforms. I was just thinking about these videos are helping people. I wasn't thinking about a follower count I was just like, I'll make a video a day, every day, about what I'm going through or what I think I went through or what I previously was going through, and hopefully it helps someone. And it got to a point where I would see these like hundreds or thousands of comments on videos, and I was like, man, these videos are connecting with people, but how can I make this more impactful? So what I did was I started in, I think it was July of last year, for about a month and a half, every single day. I would go to like, cause I would always say like at the end of the videos, you matter. I would say like, you matter, or you're not alone, you matter. That's what it said. And people will be always in the comments like, I matter, but I don't really matter, or like, not me, I don't matter, or whatever. And then they would say, what I'm going through. And I was like, how can I make this more definitive? It was that simple. I was like, no, you matter most. So what I would do is I'd pick someone, if they're saying like real shit, like people say, I just lost my partner, or I'm going through stage 4 cancer. Some of these people who have commented on these videos have actually passed since. And what I would do is I'd make the comment and just say, everyone show Candace YMM, show her love. Thousands and thousands of people in the chat be like, YMM Candace, and like just like flood people with love in ways that they didn't know was possible. And I thought that was a really powerful way, I guess, of using this community to just center in on one person. And I would center on one person every single day for about like, I think 45 days.
Wow.
Which I thought was really, which I thought was a cool way of doing so. And that's kind of like how You Matter Most started. It was just like people saying that they didn't matter. And I was like, you matter most. And then it turned into YMM, which then I got, I don't know if, so then I got that tattooed. It was my only tattoo in my life on my wrist, which was right
beautiful.
Here.
That's
yeah,
beautiful.
man. And it's just like, it's so simple. I think it's so simple, but so important. Like, you matter most, and not a selfish way, but like filling your own cup first and taking care of yourself. Like, if you're an empath or you're someone that likes to give back, it's like, it's great. But if you're not taking care of you, you can't do those things to their full extent. So it's not selfish to be selfless.
Yeah. I mean, I feel, I got you. How do you, like, I feel like people try to be unselfish, but feel selfish by being unselfish. Like, why do people feel that way? Like, you know what I mean? Like, people always say you matter most. Like, I got to take care of myself, but then they feel bad that they're taking care of themselves. So then they try to take care of others. Is that like something that like, is that like human nature is always to take care of others first? And is that like hurting us? Do you know what I mean? Like,
I think that definitely has to do with it, is like the human nature of like being kind. But I think a lot of the times too, we help other people or tend to focus on other things other than ourselves to, like, I guess, suppress what we're going through, right? Like when you procrastinate and you do, like, you have to get like an assignment done, but you clean your room, you go to laundry, you do the gym, you do all the things except the one thing just to avoid that one thing.
right.
So I feel like it's an avoidance, or like a I guess a behavior to like avoid from looking from within. I know a lot of people who give them the best advice don't take it, including myself. So I think it's very complex. And I don't know the answer. I wish I did.
Yeah. So you were at this low when you're creating these videos, and so where are you at now? Like, how did you dig yourself out of the hole?
Yeah, I guess it was recognizing I was in the hole. Like I said, that was the day when I was going for the run. Um, I'd never been in a hole before, like to that extent. So I feel like if you're going through something with mental health, you don't recognize you're like digging yourself into a hole. And you don't know how deep the hole can get, because I was fortunate that I had that epiphany when I went for the run. But the first thing, I guess, is recognizing it. The second thing is like I said, playing basketball. Yo, I'm not feeling that good, or just saying something to someone. And then the third thing is recognizing it takes way longer than you probably think it will, and that it's not linear to get out of it. But it does get better, and it gets better like every once in a while, maybe every 7 days or 10 days, you have like this point in your day where you're like, huh, I haven't felt like that in a while, or huh, this used to make me upset, or huh, I have more energy than usual. You just have like these little blurb moments of like,
Yeah, like this awareness factor.
Yeah, it's not like I'm saving $10 a day every single day to go on a vacation. It's not this, like I said, linear. It just, you have this awareness, and I think the more you are on this journey of awareness, the more you tend to click into these things. And like I said, that's easier said than done. I'm in a really good space right now. I haven't told anyone this publicly, but I'm going to in a few days. But I'm actually headed home to Canada in 17 days, which I'm beyond excited for.
Nice.
Which is a long time coming. So I'm in a good headspace because I'm actually excited for the future, which brings me to another point. Having something to always look forward to is obviously super important, small or big. I think that's really important, and being appreciative for what you have, as cliche as that is.
No, I mean, I think what you're saying is all common knowledge, but people just, it all gets blurred out, and like people just need to hear it more and more from a strong person like yourself. But you kind of just mentioned it, but like, what are some of the practical things that people could do when they start feeling down, or they start having these thoughts and are feeling a little depressed? Like, what are like the first steps to take?
Yeah, I think something that helped me a lot was setting these things called micro goals. So micro goals, I was speaking to a psychiatrist in Melbourne. So I live in Sydney. I think it's like 8 hours south. And we were talking about micro goals. So micro goals is like this. So if it's Thursday, 6:32 p.m., I'm just giving an example. And something happens and I think of my ex, or I'm really anxious, or something just happens and I'm just in a really bad state and I can feel it. I'll immediately get my phone. I'll set a 30-minute alarm. So it's till 7:02 p.m. So for the next 30 minutes, I will cry. I'll let myself feel. I'll just sit in bed or whatever it is, listen to the music that I want to listen to. And then at 7:02, when that alarm goes off, I wash my face. I go to take a shower. I text my mom. I go for a walk. I do the laundry. I do one thing to allow myself to transition out of that state. So I don't suppress that feeling, but I don't stay in that feeling, because otherwise that will carry over for a long period of time. So I thought that micro goals was something that actually helped me a lot. So I don't suppress it, yet I don't let it consume me. And I think that's very important. Both there's a fine line between suppressing it and consumption. And if you can find that middle ground for you, that allows you to be vulnerable without, I guess, losing yourself in the process.
Amazing. That's that's actually very practical. I love that. So I want to kind of go back a little bit and talk about was mental health something that you always were interested in or had any idea about, or was it until you moved out of Canada and then all of a sudden you started having these feelings? Like, because from the sound of it, you're an expert, and you're telling us tips, you're having advice, you have these platforms, you know, from the outside looking in, you're like, this dude is, you know, lives, breathes mental health. Like, was that something that you were always interested in?
Not at all. About 12 months ago, I started getting interested in it because it was impacting me. I spoke to someone about this a few weeks ago. It was, what was I going to say? How was I going to word this? I've always believed in mental health. I always like thought it, like depression, anxiety, and suicide, all that was real, but it was never going to affect me. And it wasn't until like I was going through some stuff and I actually lost a good friend of mine back home, I think about 6 months ago, that it wasn't until like, and that's obviously another thing that makes me want to do more is like seeing, I guess, yeah, we can talk about that after if you want, but like, it wasn't until I was going through it that I felt like it was real enough for me to feel like I need to be someone who needs to make a change about that. And everything isn't from an expert standpoint, it's more from a lived experience standpoint. So if things help, great, but I believe that like micro goals, that may work for you, may not work for you, but I think it's about trying things and building your own toolbox. So when you know you're going through something, you have things, and knowing you have a toolbox, when I say like skill sets, can also like stop the, I guess, negative things from happening because you know you're fully equipped for war. So I think that was, yeah, I'm not an expert. I just speak from experience and hope that what I say can help someone.
Yeah, I mean, one of my first experiences was my best friend in high school. I lost him to suicide. And, you know, when you're in high school, you feel invincible and you don't think anything related to death is real. And then all of a sudden, like, it's just gone and he's not there, and life moves on. And it's just this concept that you can't wrap your head around. And it was like my first realization being like, there's more to us. Like, you have to be aware of, like, what was he thinking? Like, why all of a sudden I was out with him last night. Like that's the weirdest thing to me. So like, why aren't these conversations happening? Why are suicide rates going up? Why are all these things like not talked about enough? And it's like, it's killing us, you know, and it's not even killing the people that are actually dying from it, but it's hurting the other ones that are left behind. You know what I mean? So my question is like, where's the conversation? Like, why does it seem like it's not happening?
It's difficult, man. Like, first and foremost, I'm sorry for your loss to your friend. I think a lot of the, I guess, mental health or suicide issues isn't I'm crying in a room, in a dark room. It's these invisible symptoms that people don't pick up on because they're not obvious. And it's that, I guess, lack of, I guess, transparency, or how it's not obvious to us, that makes it so hard. It's how can you have these conversations with the people who don't look like they're struggling but are struggling? And that's the thing that I don't have an answer for, but I would love to find something that helps, I guess, pop it like a pimple. Like, I mean, like you know, like a blackhead,
like on the surface,
just like to the surface, like make it pop out. And it's like, okay, now we can help you. But like, that's where I think the big issue lies, is the masks that we put on. And that goes back to the vulnerability that we were speaking about before, the importance of that. That's where I think the issue, like my friend from back home, I had no idea. You would have no idea that he was struggling. And a lot of people can explain to that. And then it's like, they pass and it's like, what could have I done differently? Why did he do this? Like all these thoughts of like the impact it's caused you. I know it seems selfish to say, but it's like, those are the thoughts that run through your head and destroy you if you allow it to stay in just your head. So yeah.
Yeah, it's like these like red flags that, you know, you rewind the clock and you're like, wait a minute, that didn't add up, or that was a little different from him, or, you know, and it's like these invisible signals that need to be visible. And I think, you know, it's the hardest question probably to answer, but obviously with a platform like yours and what you're doing is you're just in people's faces being like, it's okay, you matter, this is what's happening to you, and it's not wrong, it's not bad, just be aware of it and take care of it. And I think that is the most important thing, you know. And that's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you, bro. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's the important thing. It's like, I feel like mental health is like, I don't know how to, I'm gonna use a really bad analogy. I'm trying to think of like an analogy that's good, but I can't. what do I want to say? All right, I guess we'll use this. I mean, like, so sunscreen, right? It's the only thing I have on my desk next to me that I can use. So sunscreen, you probably shouldn't eat it, right? But let's just, this is a really bad example. You probably cut this out. All right, so like, say there's like 10 mils of sunscreen and I have to eat it. Maybe I'll die, right? But let's say if I had like 10 people and I gave 1 mil of sunscreen to, it's just going to taste bad. We're not going to die. Nothing's really bad going to happen. And I think that's the same with your mental health. That's a really bad analogy. If we just allow it to stay inside of us versus allowing it to like disperse across people, that's when there's issues. There's too much mental health in me. But when I'm able to get it out to people and I guess average it out to a lesser amount, we can all handle that amount. Everyone has a different amount that sunscreen they can eat or mental health that they can handle. But I think recognizing that you're not an island, and if you try to do this, you'll hurt yourself. I think that's really important to know, recognize. But it's much easier to be vulnerable when someone else is already vulnerable to you, which is going back to the point of whoever's listening to this, I challenge you to just say how you're feeling to your partner or your friend or someone in your life. And you'd be surprised at the reciprocation or just the gateway that you open in that conversation, more